Okay, so on this episode, we're joined by one of our practitioners, Helen Ford. Now, Helen Ford is a transformative hypnotherapist and heart-led coach. She is a master practitioner in cognitive hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming. She's also a trained counsellor and has certifications in Psych K, AMDR, and EFT, also known as tapping. Nice to meet you, Helen.
Thank you for having me.
And joined with us is myself, Rebecca Emily Raab, and also Anne Bayford, co-founders of Odyssey, the platform. Good to meet you, man.
That feels very strange. Nice to meet you. Lovely to see you all today. Can't wait.
Nice to see you both.
Okay, Helen, let's just dive in. Now, something that I love about your title is the fact you call yourself a heart-led coach. I love that. I kind of want to know what that means to you. What is a heart-led coach?
I think for me, over the years, as I've developed, I've realised more and more through sort of help and guidance from others as much as anything that I literally work from the heart. That's the sort of simplest way to put it, really. Not even just within my work, but now within my life as well. So I'm very much like, okay, how am I feeling? What does my heart say? Because often I find that we can be in our heads in this modern world. You know, we're on this kind of like rat race of go, go, go. So, yeah. And for me, within my work, it's encouraging people to connect back to themselves. And that's going to start with the heart.
I love that. Sorry, it's just literally, you know what it's like. I'm tuned in and then just straight away they've come in and go, oh, because you are so intuitive and because you are the empath, you've been in training since your childhood. So
Yeah.
they're sort of saying, yes, they agree. She is very much heart led. You connect that, you bridge your the emotions and to others, you connect with them. So that makes sense by the work that you do, trained, qualified, but also you've got out of your head. They said you've got out of your head, you've got out of your way yourself. And because you've been on the learning ground and of yourself, that makes sense that you've exercised that heart muscle. So yeah, sorry, they you know what it's like when we do these podcasts, they keep coming in and that's why I'm giving the message as a medium. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I did go through a period. I mean, you know, we're always evolving, we're always changing our names and, you know, where we're at, and it often all ends up being a version of a theme, right? And for a long time, it was I did sort of I was called like an intuitive therapist, intuitive coach, and now I sort of with Odyssey stuck with heart led. But yeah, it's all one and the same thing to me.
Love that.
I love the word because it's such a warming thing to say, like heart led. And I've seen firsthand in your workshops and when you do sessions with people, even just being around you, there is this kind of warmth.
Thank
There
you.
is this kind of heart energy around you.
Oh,
There is.
thank you.
I really like it. But I do have a question, which is
Mm.
when we're living in such a bustling world, how do
Mm.
you remain so heart led when there's so much kind of pulling us out of that space?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. For me personally, it's easier because of the big changes I've made within my life, both being self-employed and also living on the seaside. So I'm not in the hustle and bustle of London so much now. So it's a lot easier for me to be grounded, and I find that when I'm grounded, I can be more in my heart space. So I'm always encouraging people, regardless of where they're living, what they're doing, take time out, you know, breathe, just ask yourself what you need and get into that space that is kind of tuning in with your heart rather than your head going, well, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to go here, but that's always going to be there. But you can take a step back, you can choose.
She lives and eats what she practices, they just said.
And I do. And to be honest with you, it's been a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. Of course it doesn't. But when you start to recognize how much easier and enjoyable and nice life is by living a certain way, and you register what it is that makes it that way, then why would you live any other way? It's a practice. It's a practice, isn't life? Life is just one big practice, right?
Yeah.
It really is.
It sounds
Yeah.
like you've been really curating, like really intentionally curating the life that you have now by the place that you live and the practices that you do. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yeah, I would. And I don't know whether it's been a conscious curation. I think maybe on some level, but a lot of it has just been getting into a flow and then just finding myself doing things that work for me, the same sort of things every day. And I'm not really a creature of habit. I mean, Aries for a start, so I'm normally like go, go, go. as I've got older and wiser, I've kind of registered what serves me perhaps a little bit better. But yeah, I'd say now it's curated because I know what works. So I'm like, why would I not do that?
Makes
And
sense.
we're going to get into your journey at some point, and we're also going to get into some of these practices so people can really take some actionable things away from this and to be inspired by your journey. But something I want to get to first is you put this aim down, which is you aim to create a calm and happy life. Why is that the aim? You know how people come at life from lots of different angles, aiming for certain things. Some people won't be aiming for a calm and happy life, but for you, why is that what you try to achieve?
A calm and happy life. I don't know whether that was always where I was at. Probably not, because obviously we're constantly evolving. But these days, definitely, I just feel the world has got faster. You know, the planet's evolving, humanity's evolving. And so for me to come back to myself and to be able to make decisions from a calm and informed and happy place just makes life easier, you know. And I think that it's not always going to be that way. You know, I'm not living some amazingly miraculous life that no one else can live. But for me, it's just registering what works and making that choice. And we can choose our states daily. We don't always think we can, but there's just a lot about making conscious choices and giving ourselves those times or that time to be able to make the choice to live in calm or to live in happiness or joy or whatever it is.
Mm.
I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, it does for sure. And it sounds like from what you're saying, it is this active choice. It's a bit like when people talk about the word love, it's like you have to actively choose to be in love or to be in that relationship. It's doing the work, it's putting the effort in. So it sounds like from what you're saying, it's choosing to be calm, choosing to be happy, choosing to do the things that will bring you those things, kind of regulating your own nervous system
right.
and things like
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Go on.
how would you do that? How would
But
you
I think
recommend?
also, I mean, for me personally as well, the old adage, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So if I can live a life where I feel calm and grounded and happy and supported within myself, then I can offer that to other people as a, to be able to serve essentially, you know? So, oh, Anne's incoming.
Okay, sorry.
You see the eyes going, right?
I just I just heard them say, so ask her, how did you get to this point in your life? What made
Yep.
you get to this point where this is what you wanted to offer your clients? What was your journey that brought you to where you are right now? Because I'm sure there's so many people listening to the audience that want to know, well, it sounds wonderful where she's at, and but it feels so far, maybe for some people, so far removed from their own lives. And it's like
Mm,
some people might be thinking, oh yeah, it's okay for her because she's lived the perfect lifestyle.
mm,
So they okay, thinking my guides are sort of saying, ask her to explain what brought her to this point, what made her want to do this, what made her look at her own self? What was it that came
mm,
up for you? They said.
I think, as Rebecca just said, and now my brain's completely gone. Nervous system. That was it. Central nervous system. I was living in London, living a very high, fast-paced life. Very, very difficult boss. Very demanding. Very, very short fuse. Anger issues. Blah blah blah. God love him. And I worked in this environment for 6 years. Most people did 6 months. And I would get to the weekend and I would literally be a zombie. And I was probably kind of early 30s when I started doing that. And so at the weekend, I'd have to really push just to get the energy to go out and be social, because it's like that's what you do in your early 30s, and your friends want to see you and you want to have a life. But you're literally, for me, I was literally on a hamster wheel of like pushing on through. And I didn't at that time, I wasn't as I want to say awake as a word, I wasn't as conscious of this stuff because I disconnected from it. I used to be when I was probably quite a young child and early teens, and then disconnected from it and just got into life. And then actually it wasn't me that made the sort of switch. Well, it was, of course it was, but things got heated between him and I, and he told me to leave in less polite terms one day, and so I did. And I just took the view that actually anything was better than where I was at that time. And at that moment, I think it was a real wake up call for me to go, actually, now you get to choose, you get to create the life you want. And I literally just walked out of a very well paid, very, very good job and thought, okay, anything I do now is better. My soul was literally at the point of saying, you can't do this anymore. This is something's got to give.
So it sounds like a wake up call, like an awakening and such. Okay, sorry, they're going for it. It's not. I feel like saying they're going for the juggler, but they're not. They're sort of saying, they're sort of saying to me, but you were always a sensitive child, Helen,
Mm.
and they've been
Don't
trying to
make
get your attention to get back. So yeah, so there's something where trying to get your attention as a sensitive child
Mm.
were around you all the time. So they, meaning guides, angels, yeah, we've got that. Beings coming in and thank you. They sort of show me you being in front of a treasure trove. So whether that's crystals that were calling out to you or something, but they were trying to get your attention from a younger age. Does that make sense?
Oh my God, 100%. I mean, I swear to God, I had moments when I was quite young where there were literally things in the wardrobe. Sounds really cliche, doesn't it? But literally knocking in the wardrobe. But yeah, I was really tuned in when I was young. And as I think I've written in my bio, I remember buying a magazine, or my mum bought me a magazine when I was probably 7 or 8, and it had like an oracle, dowsing thing in it. And, you could ask questions and it would give you an answer. And I just thought it was the most incredible thing ever. It's just the smallest little pamphlet, and I squirreled it under my bed for years so that my mother didn't go in and do one of her tidy ups and throw it out. And I know, because of the path I was on at that time, my first sort of major job when I was 19 was with a very spiritual family, and they taught me so much. We did feng shui and just very much law of attraction and all of this stuff. And I could just feel myself expand, and it was just so beautiful, and it was filling my soul. And somewhere between probably when I moved to London, so early 20s and early 30s, I got caught in life. I just got in relationships that weren't perhaps supporting my soul, and I sort of ended up living more on a kind of what I would say a sort of 3D existence, and less heart-led, and of course at some point that had to shift, which it did, and thank God it did. Thank God it went back, because one day I was like, what the hell am I doing? This just does not feel right.
But that happens though. It's like that happens where we go into that. Thank you. They said the naivety of the child. It's easier for them to have that invisible friend, to be drawn to certain things, the crystals or whatever it is. And then as we go through life, the practical human existence of their world, the 3D world, kicks in. So then we get caught up in the everyday bills and the relationships and work and everything else. So that's okay. They said, Helen, don't beat yourself up. There's waves of this. And this happens to so many people that are listening to this right now. So yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it definitely came and went in waves. And I think that feeling of disconnect was enough to make me go, something has to shift, because it was like a pain in my heart almost, but I wasn't really sure what I needed to do to change it. Yeah, and that's when I ended up seeing somebody who was very intuitive, and she made me go, oh right, now it makes sense. I know exactly what I need to be doing, which was amazing.
Love those moments.
So you currently live by the seaside, and then before that you were in London. Where did you grow up? Was it in the city? Was it by the seaside? Where were you growing up?
It was, I was Greater London until I was about 13, and then we moved down to Kent, about 40 minutes from where I am now, which is the seaside. And I went to school in Canterbury, and I was sort of down in Kent for 10 years. And when I got to early 20s, there wasn't enough down here for me in terms of work and where I wanted to go to. So I took myself back to London and was pretty much back in London for I was born in London, so 23 years I think I was back in London. And again, it was a soul calling to come to the seaside. Really, it was just like one day, oh, I'm moving to the seaside. It kind of always been floating around,
Mhm.
but the time never felt right. And then one day it just did. You know what these
Mm.
things are like. You know, if you're
Yeah.
kind of open to it, it just lines up. And I'm like, oh, I'm off then. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that might have seemed like a strange question, but I don't know too much about your kind of I don't know anything really about the kind of upbringing or anything like this. So it's painting a big picture for me and it's filling in the gaps and kind of
Mm,
seeing how things work. Going back to you as a child and having this intuition, which we spoke about,
mm.
how was your intuition taken within the family? Because I wasn't sure when you had this oracle book and you hid it, I was like, was it not accepted that you had these kind of intuitive gifts and interests, or was it accepted? I just wondered why the book was being hidden, but you mentioned it was because you didn't want your mum to throw it out.
Well, it was hidden because I was very messy as a child, and every now and
Okay.
then my mother would go in with a bin bag and just have a clear out, and I'd come home from school and be like, "Where's this? Where's that? Oh, I threw it out. It's gone. It's gone." Like, oh. And so that's why I had that. I had that intuitive thought that if I don't hide this, she's just going to pick it up and think it's a bit of an old magazine.
Sure.
But in terms of your other question, I think my family. I think I always knew that I was intuitive. I don't think they at the time would have really understood it. My mother had a sort of remembering of herself, I guess, early 20s, and I was probably around early 20s, early 40s, some maths there. And I was around 15, 16 when she sort of came online, so to speak. And so, and obviously we know the soul pod thing and blah, blah, blah. But I spent a lot of my younger years always being the sort of wise head on young shoulders and in the family and sort of the glue that kind of stuck everyone together and all of those things. But I don't think my family would have really understood the whole intuitive thing at that age. And I probably didn't either, to be honest.
Mhm.
I just knew
Okay.
how it felt.
Yeah. So as this child, you kind of had this intuition that you were intuitive. It's kind of like, I know something. I know that I'm kind of picking up something and there's something going on here, but it wasn't necessarily honed in until. So you mentioned that your mum went on a spiritual journey, and I don't
Mm,
know much about, as like I said, the upbringing. So with your mum, and it's something I can relate to in some ways because I
mm,
witnessed my mum go on a spiritual journey, which is how I got into spirituality.
yeah.
So how was that witnessing her journey? What were the key defining factors of that for you seeing? Like what was that about?
I think for me, I can't even remember kind of how it started, but she decided that she was going. I don't even know how she got into it. In fact, I must ask her. But she decided she was going to study astrology, and she was, like I say, early 40s, and she'd go literally to an evening class, you know, like one did back in the day,
Mhm.
and then all these books started appearing on bookshelves, and she was just talking nonstop about astrology, and I was. I'm sure you'll relate. 15, 16. Oh, Mom, I don't want to hear it. Oh, God, you know, I did just, you know, all of that.
You can't escape
And
it.
no, you
Can I
can't.
practice on you? Can I practice Reiki? Can I?
Well, it would be like, this is because, and this is and always unsolicited, you know.
Yes,
And I'd be like,
always.
oh, for God's sake, I roll, you know.
Yeah.
But all these books started appearing, and we had this bookcase in the hallway, and I'd be like, I'd sort of walk past them, and eventually I'd sort of start sneaking them off the shelves and
Mm,
reading them, being like, oh God, this makes total sense. And it
mm,
wasn't even just books on astrology, it was all sorts of different spiritual topics and about the self and learning the self and relationships and all of that. And so I'd be like, you know, in bed having a little sneaky read. Yeah, and I, as I say, it was obviously meant to be. And then as I got older and a bit more, or a bit less teenage, I suppose,
mhm.
I mean, she's helped me incredibly with the astrology side over the years, absolutely amazingly. And I've just called her and been like, there's some shit going down, pardon my French. And she's like, oh, okay, hold on, let me get my book. And it's been really, really helpful. So yeah, I think she went on a journey of self-discovery, and I think astrology was her way, much like you and human design, was her way of really connecting to that and understanding herself, and then being so excited about being able to understand everybody else. Which, yeah.
It's funny, they just turned around and said they are thank you. They I was holding back a little bit and they said, no, wait a minute, because they said say this statement, and then you guys had mentioned about the families, because they said, see, you can understand now that why humans are introduced to their soul families, their soul pods, because it takes the interaction with your soul family members to inspire, to ignite, to bring up certain passions. So whatever's going on in a family, there's always something that happens that helps the soul, the human, to start developing, or the intrigue or interest, they just said.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because my mother and I have both been very connected in this field. My dad and brother are like literally don't want to hear it, don't understand it, don't want to know. To be fair, not so much don't want to know. We'll kind of, listen occasionally if something comes up. But yeah, it's just fascinating how different four people can be,
Then it's getting used to, they just said, of that half the world is not going to listen or to believe in this or go their own way. So it's like preparation to be aware that some people aren't, but they're intrigued and interested in how you work with your clients, because you soul heart led, that you work very intuitive with your clients as well, they just said. So it's good how you combine your skill set with the empathic part of you, intuitive and psychic abilities. Oh, thank you. They just said, even though she doubts that side of her sometimes, sorry, I had to bring that up. They were looking at you. And also bringing up, the qualifications in counselling and therapist and everything else that you do. So thank you. They just said they're enjoying your journey, Helen, when they watch over you and seeing how you're progressing. They love that.
Oh, happy to entertain.
Love that.
Yeah, I think for me actually, this is interesting, just landed now. My mum said to me years ago when she was first studying astrology, I think when you're in your early 40s, you're going to start looking at different ways of being. And I was like, whatever. Obviously, I was early 30s at the time, going through a painful breakup and all of that. And I don't want to hear it, don't want to hear it, don't want to hear it. And she was bang on, absolutely bang on. And I think when I trained, which was early 40s, it was, yes, I mean, I've learned some incredible things through my training, but a lot of it was almost reinforcing what perhaps I'd always been doing, on a subconscious level, because I'd always been the person that people came to talk to and confided in and trusted, and the wise head on young shoulders and all of that. It's just been who I've been, right?
Love that. Love that.
How much of this do you think is down to timing then? Because you came to spirituality relatively young, you got exposed to it, and then there was this period of time where you kind of lost touch with it, or you went to the city and other things took priority, and then you came back to it at this predicted moment of around 40 years old. Is that a feeling? Do we feel the planet's influence us like that? How does that sit with you?
I think everything's in divine timing, and I think our experiences lead us to where we land and where we are now, and who knows what I might be doing 5 years from now. And I think, as Anne was saying earlier, it comes in waves, right? Life comes in waves. So yeah, I mean, my mum would definitely argue that there was a big shift happening at 40. She also said there'd be a big one at 30, which there was. But yeah, I guess it just, the planets align, life aligns, we're always changing and evolving, and I just generally think that we're always where we're meant to be, even if that is a really uncomfortable moment.
Yeah. So much growth in those uncomfortable moments, they just said.
100%, absolutely. And they have to be accepted along with anything else, really, because there's power in the surrender as well, I think.
Yeah, and unpicking of those moments they just said. So they like the unpicking and hand holding, they just said, that you do with your clients as well, that supportive space, the environment to help them to go through that, to give them their tools, their skills, and to work with them. That's what they just said.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it's space holding. People need a safe space to be able to talk. Some clients I have literally will just come and talk to me for an hour, and I might say 2 or 3 things, and it's not about me. So it's just, and they'll get them like, that was great, thanks, and off they go. And I'm like, okay. But there's an energetic exchange in that as well.
There is, and it's funny because they said, Helen, you had mentioned something earlier about how friends would come to you and talk to you and listen in ear, and you've always offered that because you have been in training for many years before you even qualified. They just said they just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I 100% know that as well. Of course I
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
good.
just always been the way it's been. So now I've just got the qualifications to say it as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Going back to those key dates, so you said 40, and we know that you came back to spirituality. Is that right? Around 40 years old, you came back to spirituality. Is that big shift that happened then?
I think dates. I think it
Approximately.
yeah, no. I'm just God, time moves so fast. I'm like, all of that feels 100 years ago.
Mm.
Um, I think I went on a. I'm just trying to think of the dates. I'm really bad with dates. It was hilarious when people ask me numbers or dates or ages, and I'm like, oh. Um, I walked away from a long-term relationship in my early 30s, and that
Mm.
was probably when I started the journey of reconnecting back to myself. And
Okay.
part of that experience was going through the tough, that incredible job that I did with my tough boss.
Mm.
That was all part of it, but I was definitely reconnecting to myself in that time, but perhaps in waves again, moments of like, there's more to life than this, and this is nuts. When I had time to think about it, but because I was so busy and so stressed, a lot of the time I just didn't give myself that time to tune in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important thing to recognize for people that are really busy and really stressed. And it's really easy to say when you're not in that position yourself, but do what you can to carve out just some time for yourself, even if it means you get up half an hour earlier in the morning, and just to be able to evaluate life and evaluate where you are and just not be on this unconscious treadmill and, not, it's like you're not in the driving seat of your own life sometimes when you're in that environment.
Very
Were
true.
you doing that back then, or is this something you'd feed back to your younger self?
This is definitely something I'd feed back to my younger self 100%. I think maybe I had moments, but it definitely wasn't a daily thing for sure. When I look back now, I think, God, I don't know how I did that and like worked at that pace for so long. And then you take maybe 2 weeks off in the summer or something, and
Mm.
you'd have like a few days where you're still cold spring, and then all of a sudden you'd relax and all the ideas had come in and inspiration, and you're like, oh great, I could do this and this, we could change this, and this is amazing, I'm going to start that, go back to work, and it all goes out of the window.
Mm.
And I'm like, more and more realizing that this isn't how we should live as humans,
Mm.
and I
Definitely.
think that's going to change moving forwards.
Yeah.
What was it that you were aiming for back then? So you're aiming for a calm and happy life now, but what was the aim back then for you to be in this fast-paced job and quite a stressful job, being in the city, being in a relationship that wasn't, I don't know the story, but not necessarily serving you? What was your goal back then?
It's a very interesting question, Rebecca.
Hmm.
I don't know whether I had a conscious goal back then. I think I I guess I was, before I took on the job that was the tough job, I'd worked as an interior designer down here, and then I'd gone to London and I was over it. And so I'd worked in a fabric showroom and whatever, and I was bored senseless with that. I did that for about 5 years. And then I got headhunted for this job. And part of my growth at that time was really reconnecting back to my creative skill set, I suppose. And so I was loving that. And I don't think I had a specific goal of I'm going to do this for 3 years and then I'm going to set up my own business. I think it was more, I'm going to do this all the time. It's serving me. But the problem was it was so full on that I didn't actually have the bandwidth to feel into what I wanted to do next. And I didn't have the bandwidth to potentially look for another job or to consider setting up another business or my own business, because I was so maxed out. So I think even if I had had a goal back then, an end goal, I don't actually know how I would have orchestrated it without literally just saying, I need to step right away from this and reevaluate everything, which is ultimately what I ended up doing.
And it's interesting. They said the key word there was consciousness, being
Mm.
consciously aware of what was going on, because many of you, they said, are on there is a terminology that use the rat race or the hamster wheel. So
Yeah.
it's that conscious awareness. And normally it takes something to, they just said like battleships knock you out the water. Something needs to happen to sort of then something traumatic to happen to make you put on to stop for a while, to pause, then to look at, to be aware of what you do moving forward. And they said that is the consciousness. So yes.
essentially divine intervention, isn't it,
Mm.
really? And I think, I mean, one of the phrases I've used, which has really come off the back of that experience, has been, what is worst case scenario in your situation right now? And if you can work out what worst case scenario is, it's not apt for everybody, but it certainly helped me. If I knew my worst case scenario was X, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can manage that, even if it's for 6 months, then I'm happy to completely walk away from the situation. And that takes away that kind of need for panic, essentially. Because, you walk away from a really good, high, well-paid job, you could freak out.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you were getting swept up just in the day to day, like it was just being swept up into what a lot of people are doing within society. And like Anne was just saying, it does take something to wake you up. I mean, can you paint us a picture of that moment? So from what I'm hearing here, we've got the kind of partner piece and we've also got the job piece, but how did they both explode together, or was this one after each other? What was the situation?
I think the relationship was a lot earlier. Well, actually, there is a link, because of course there always is. So the
Always.
relationship had been 5 years, and that's sort of imploded in quite a large way, slightly unexpected way. And I was early 30s, and Mum was all like, "Oh, Saturn return, blah blah
That's what I was
blah."
going to say. Saturn returns.
Hence why, yeah, you and I have spoken about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had spent, whilst I was with him, I'd spent years trying to change my job, years, and nothing was happening, absolutely nothing, because my energy wasn't in the right place. Probably a lot to do with the relationship I was in with him, and that's all fine, because that's all divine timing as well, right? And the minute he went, I was like, oh my God, I've got to move out of my house. I don't know where I'm going to live. All of that crap of life comes up. But I was just caught by incredible friends, and just eternally grateful for that. In big life changes, you really realize who your friends are, right?
Yeah.
And I camped for a long time, and I think I was probably away from that relationship for maybe 2 months, and I got headhunted into this then big job.
Amazing.
And I was like, suddenly I'm in this job, I'm working on a project in Miami, I'm like literally doing all this incredible stuff.
Seen that project. That project is amazing in Miami.
And my life has gone from, it's just suddenly the energy and the dynamic has shifted hugely. And I'm probably putting a lot of energy into that job because, I've got this spare energy from the relationship that's no more and all the rest of it. But it's very different. It's just crazy projects, amazing multi-million-pound properties in London, blah, blah, blah. I've forgotten the rest of the question, right? But that's so this is the timeline, and
you're painting the picture of this implosion event that made you this kind of divine intervention that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was so much fun in the beginning, because I'm working in the south of France, I'm working on a super yacht, but I'm juggling like 4 different projects, and my boss at the time, he's like, oh God, you're really, I can't believe it, you can keep everything in the air. And I'm like, yeah, that's just who I am. And I learned a lot about myself in that way as well. And I traveled a lot, and I had a great time, but it wasn't without working at that pace where I'm like, I really need to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom. Phone's ringing. Got to get some lunch. I literally would allow myself 2 minutes pretty much before I peed myself. Sorry to share. And then be back at my desk, and then like, all right, let me just grab a sandwich. And it's like, you've probably seen the image of the cartoon of a woman with like the phone and whatever else, and
6 arms at the same time.
Totally that. And that was from like 9:30 in the morning until like 5:30 at night. Didn't come up for air at all, and then would go home and be like, oh, there's another day gone, I don't know who I am.
Yeah, and we know you're a projector, and that's just not gonna work for a projector in human design.
Absolutely. And
just know.
Amen for understanding that about myself in later life as well, because now I'm like, oh, I've done 3 minutes of work, I can go and have a cup of coffee and put my feet up.
Very accurate. That's exactly what I recommend to everyone.
Getting living it. So I honestly, when I look back now, I'm like, I don't know how I did that. I don't know how I didn't burn out. But obviously I wasn't meant to. It was just part of my journey.
So they just said that they're laughing. These are guides and everything. They're laughing because sometimes people human fears change. And because in their mind, their mental state of what that might mean for them from stepping out of something, a relationship, work, or whatever it is, or moving to a different area. But when you actually do that, or when it's forced upon you, or you take the actions, like when you step out of it, actually it's like they think it's gonna be like Pandora's box, but no, there's a gem there. There's that your energy, like everything frees up. Like you said, you was offered all this work and everything, like, which is brilliant, and it shifts you into another wave of energy of when it was transported you into this job. Then you go through that, so you're another layer of yourself. They said that you're elevating, and then this happens within your work. So then there's something else that happens.
Right.
So it's constantly pushing you. It's like, thank you. They said they give humans many opportunities for growth, but sometimes through fear they hold themselves back. But actually it's about doing the jump. They said, okay, thank you. They just said to me, sometimes the human already knows there's something they should be doing, but they hold themselves back. But really they know there's that little voice or that gut feeling, or they're seeing those signs, but through fear we hold ourselves back, they just said.
Yeah, and I think certainly once I'd walked away from that job and I was like, oh, I'm just going to take a bit of time out and work out what I want to do and all of those things. And I literally had a month off, and this guy that I still work with now came at me and said, I've got this project, will you come and help me? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Damn, I wanted a bit more time off. But it was just, and I always have this analogy from this experience whereby it's like if you've got your foot, you're stepping off of a stepping stone or a cliff or something, and you're just trusting that when you put your foot down there's going to be something there to catch you, right? And that takes a lot, but it's not until you actually do a few of these big moves, even if you don't choose to, it's being in that space of being able to go, okay, this has happened, I can either push against it or I can go, obviously there's a reason why this is happening, I have to trust that when I put my foot down something's going to catch me, and every time it does.
And that I think so like so thank you for sharing that, because it's true. Because for me personally, what they keep giving me images is like the Indiana Jones moment where going over, where he puts his foot down, and there's like when you visibly look at it, they can't see the path in front of him. And thank you, they just say it's always about that trust, knowing that you're going to be caught and you're going to be supported by putting that foot down. There is then that pathway that is shown to you, and it is the trust, the element of trust. Now there's something you said, it's that trust, knowing that things are gonna work okay and they're going to be okay, and that's the biggest thing. Okay, thank you. They said that's why helping others understand to trust in the divine, or whatever it is, or divine, they're going to be called, whether you think it's angels or whatever it is. Okay, thank you. Or whatever it is there to support you. So okay, thank you. They want to look at this with you, Helen, because it's about this trust in this process. You've gone through all these things that have happened to you, and you've made these massive changes, coming out of relationship, moving, coming into London, coming away from Kent, and going back now, living where you do, and with the work and everything. So for you, it's that trust. They want to know, what does that mean for you, that trust? What is it that you visualize or imagine that's there to support you, they just said. Oh,
I think I've always, it's quite simple. I just trust that I'm divinely guided.
Have you always done that?
It's a very good question, and I knew that was coming as well. And I was just actually thinking about
I'm going to cut through that.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Probably not, to be honest with you. But I think what happens is, as you go through experiences in life and you start to piece together the jigsaw, you realize that you can trust, because everything that's happened to you before has got you to where you are now, and you've survived it, even if it feels horrific at that time. And so for me, I kind of trust that, it's all of it. It's not just the good stuff, it's the good, the bad and the ugly, right? So if there's something that's uncomfortable that's happening, I've had moments where I've literally delete had no work, literally had no work, and being like, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. We've all had these moments. And at that point, I mean, to be fair, Anne, you and I had a conversation about that, and that was really helpful. But it's like, get back into your heart space, get back into, trusting that you are divinely led, you're divinely guided, you're looked after, there's forces bigger than you out there, and trust that this is part of the journey, part of the lesson. What do you need to learn from it? All of those things.
How much of this trust process is the trust in something bigger, and how much of this trust process is the trust in yourself?
Also a lovely question. Lovely question. I'm pondering that one.
No, it's good. If it was
is.
easy, then it would be really boring.
Yeah, it's a lovely question. Oh, I don't actually know how much is trusting myself and how much is trusting.
Maybe not a number, because we've spoken about the number stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yes.
No, but what I quite liked was your answer to that was, well, I trust there is something kind of bigger. I trust there is a plan. I trust there is divine timing. I trust there is divine intervention. But in order to take that step, in order to trust that, because I resonate with a lot of what you're saying, from the moves that I've done, from going to the jungle, from living in Borneo, from like living in New Zealand and Norway and China. Yeah, I'm trusting there's a bigger plan. But I used to have panic attacks and anxiety and all of this stuff. And it was like, okay, we can just tell everyone to go believe in something bigger than themselves. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to jump. But some of that jump is you looking after yourself and trusting that you've got your own back. And jumping into something completely unprepared may not create the same thing. And it'd be good to have a conversation around this, because a lot of it is taking the small, for me, I think it was, I say taking the small steps, but my first long haul, my first trip away was New Zealand. I mean, I picked the furthest country away,
right?
But, I was trusting in myself and just focused on the day-to-day stuff and going, well, look, I can go outside. And having mum on the other end of the phone was really good, because she brought me back down to the mindset in the moment. Well, you're still breathing the air. The moon is still the same moon. Like, you can go on this walk and just go on a treasure hunt, like go and explore, go and find a bakery. Like, we have a bakery in London, go and find a bakery in New Zealand. But a lot of it is learning how you are going to help yourself and how you are going to surrender and trusting yourself. So I'm trying to pick up this balance in this conversation between divinity and also yourself, and being in co-creation with that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I think it would be airy-fairy of me to be just like, I just trust in something bigger than me, and that's, I'm just not going to do anything, because we all know that life is about action as much as anything else. And of course, we're energetic beings, so we have to bring an energetic value to anything that we're going to do. So yeah, I think a lot of it, I think it's probably a balance of the two. It's recognizing where you need to take action and how that feels within yourself, and whether you're trusting yourself with that action, and then going, okay, I'm going to take this action and trust that it's the way it's meant to be, and I'm just going to call in maybe some support if I need it from something bigger than me.
And they just said also, it's like knowing the world is not going to collapse if you do something that you think, that your mind thinks, oh my God, what if that happens? It's like knowing that actually you've got your own back. You have to step into that. Big changes happen for everyone. Big change happened for me recently, and it's like knowing that I've got my own back. And you only by actually stepping forward and learning that the world is not going to set itself on fire, that you realize, oh my God, I'm stronger than I thought I was, and I've got more courage. And out of that, it's sort of like there's that growth. I mean, they just showed me, like, forest fire in where the forest just burns down and there's a disaster, but actually there's regrowth in that. And so it's just taking the courage to know, okay, it feels so uncomfortable not to move, to stay in that space. It's more energetically draining by forcing yourself to stay in that position. That growth comes where you just got to say, right, I can't do this whole thing, but just go for it.
You're so passionate about this.
I know, but that's the thing. It's like, well, I have to just do it, because I can't survive in that situation. For me to grow, for me to really know that there's a reason why I'm here, I have to take that step. And it's more uncomfortable not taking it. And it's that push about just believing that you have to just jump, try it, that leap of faith, as we were saying, that foot in front of the other one.
And I do think as well, I mean, for me especially, I don't, even if I'm an Aries, I don't feel like I make big life decisions a lot. Like I'm not like, oh, I'm going to go to New Zealand this week and I'm going to go there next week. I'm kind of quite.
Right, that's a personal dig there. I'm joking.
Sorry, bad example. Can't even dig my way out of that one. No, I've lost my train of thought. So I'm the sort of person that I tend to, like, my life changes. I'll do like 5 or 6 years somewhere, and then suddenly it's like, And at that point, you're like, oh, bugger it, I forgot how hard this was.
Yeah.
But when you've made one big life decision because your life has just gone kaput,
Yeah.
and you've stepped away from that job or you stepped away from that relationship, then you go, okay, that was the hard bit.
Yeah.
So now if I take another job or I get into another relationship, whatever, and it doesn't work, I can move again quite easily because I've just done the hard one, right?
Yep.
That's it, Helen. That's the
Thank
golden
you.
nugget.
Nothing
Nugget.
is ever permanent. Like, this is the biggest thing
Right.
that I found. Nothing is ever permanent. So you're right. Like, if you've done it once, you can do it again.
Yeah.
And that's good. And something else that was quite interesting what you were saying, you were like, the world won't be on fire. I mean, it's also quite interesting because of the world that we live in and technology and social media and just the news. I mean, it looks like the world is pretty much on fire and climate change and blah, blah, all this stuff. The world doesn't feel very safe. Like, it feels very dangerous. In fact, it is the most peaceful we've ever had the earth. But I mean, we don't get kind of fed that information. But it was something that you said earlier, Helen, as well, was about the friends that you made straight after all these kind of life-changing things. And something that I always told myself through anything, whether it was a big move to a different country, whether it was moving to a different culture, whether it was a different job, there are humans already there and they are living and they're surviving. And it's also, when we're having the conversation about trust and trust in ourselves and trust in divinity, but I also think it's trust in humanity.
Absolutely.
And it's really difficult to curate that trust in humanity when we're being fed so much stimuli that says do not trust humanity. So I think there's something to say in there about, and there was something I was listening to or reading recently, which was about how you can start doing this in your day-to-day world by just simply saying good morning to the people around you, shaking the hand of someone, saying hello and thank you to the bus driver, because these small interactions every single day in different moments, even saying thank you to the coffee shop owner or whatever it is, you're getting this constant feedback loop of, oh, people are kind and people are nice.
Yes.
But if you're not getting that interaction, even on the most mundane level, like going to the park and saying hello to the guy walking the dog or whatever, you're not getting that feedback loop of the world is safe. You're just getting the stimuli from your phone, which is saying the world is on fire and there is wars going on. And so
be scared.
Trust in humanity is a biggest thing as well, because where there are humans, you can survive. Like, you can.
Yeah. And I think that's really beautiful. And I often think that because I notice being out of London that people down here, it's a lot easier to be like, you can go out in the morning, it's like morning, 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 morning.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm quite like that. And other times I'm in my own world. But I always get a certain vibe when I say good morning to somebody. And I'm like, oh, you've got no idea what that person's going through in their life at that moment. And you may have just made their day, you know. And there might be moments where someone says good morning to you and that's made your day, you know.
It's that heartfelt moment they just said. It's like, the heartfelt moment of being open to changes and possibilities. And by sharing that happiness, you receive it back. It's that ebb and flow of energy. They just gave me a pigeon by a park bench. I don't know why they just did that. But anyway.
Well, that'll probably be to do with me, because basically whenever I land on a park bench, I've got like a gazillion birds at my feet.
Just say good morning to them and hello. That's all good. Just
right. Yeah.
We're all aiming for this heart-led self and this happiness self to a certain degree. I think anyone coming into these podcasts that are listening are kind of going, there's a different way of doing things. Like, there's some type of curiosity for people that are listening, whether they're kind of in the process or just beginning. Now, some people won't be aware of where they're not allowing happiness in, but some people be aware that they are also self-sabotaging their happiness, right? There's something you speak about, which is letting go of things that hold you back, releasing anything that holds you back, are the words that you use. How do you release things? Because if you can, with ease, how do you release things with ease so you can allow that happiness in?
Lovely question again. Well, I think awareness is the first step. So I think being aware of where you're at and what it is that you might want to release is the first step. And people often don't know because it's buried deeply in the subconscious, hence the whole hypnotherapy thing. And that's what I found worked beautifully for me, hence why I trained in it. But yeah, I think also as we evolve as humans, I think sometimes there has to be an intention behind it. You know, we have to be willing to change our stories. We have to want to change our stories. And that's not always easy perhaps to do on our own. We can do it on our own. I mean, just releasing stuff through writing, shaking stuff off. I mean, obviously a lot deeper stuff might be more work than that, but on a basic day-to-day stuff, you have a bad day and someone runs over your toe on a bike or something and you're in a bad mood, you can shake that stuff off yourself. But I think awareness is definitely the first step, being aware that there's stuff that needs to be released.
I like that in terms of on the day-to-day you can shake that stuff off, because we were talking earlier about curating your life and choosing happiness the same way that we choose love. And it's like in those small moments, they aren't big things that are like necessarily traumatic. I mean, someone spills something on you, or there's like a traffic jam, all of this stuff. We have choice in those day-to-day moments to shake it off. Are there any other practices that people can do for that, other than literally like standing in the middle of the street and like shaking it off? Is there anything they can do on a day-to-day moment where they're like, oh, this was a bit of a downer in my day, how can I just release that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be the simplest thing. If you're into fitness, go for a run, put some loud music on, have a dance and a sing, literally shake it off your body with the intention that you're letting it go. Get out in nature, walk bare feet, just allow it to release out, just ask for it to leave through your feet into the ground. Write about it, scribble it down. Don't have to keep the writings afterwards if you don't want to. What else? I mean, tapping again, obviously doing more of that.
That's what I've heard. You teach people to tap, which is absolutely brilliant. A skill that they can go away with, a tool that can actually help them. So the clients that you work with, you do the tapping with them, so they can take that away from and use that whenever they need it. Anxiety, panic, or anger, or whatever it is, to reset them to some degree. Yeah,
and I think even I mean, I'm going to do a bit of this over the coming weeks. Promo alert. But I think even if a very simple is on the collarbone, and if there's something that's driven you nuts, or you're in a stinking mood and you want to change it, just hold on to the thought and just tap left to right, and it's basically rebalancing the left and right brain hemisphere. And also, if you do that and stop and breathe and then do it again a bit more, I'm just doing a very loose demo, it shifts stuff. It really does.
So for people that can't see that, because they might be on Spotify and other streaming platforms like that, you've got two, both hands up, you've got two fingers, and the rest of them are kind of clenched into like a fist. You've got two fingers. You're kind of, what are these, the first and second fingers?
Yeah.
And you've popped them onto the kind of bony bit in the middle underneath your neck, kind of the bone, the collarbone.
Collarbone, just on your collarbone, and then just tap quite fast, left to right. Faster.
Okay, people can't see this. So kind of like a fast frequency, like a
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then but you can do the same on your knees. Now you can hear that.
You can hear that.
I forget that this is all potentially going on Spotify as well.
So you could even do this on the tube, for example, or on a bus. You could kind of just tap maybe over your neck or your hands or your legs, you're saying, anything kind of on both sides of the hemisphere.
Both sides of your body, but quite fast. So you can do it. I mean, you could, if you're sat there in headphones and you're tapping your legs left and right.
It looks like you like the music.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I also like when I asked for these kind of day-to-day examples, I like the kind of variety that you gave there, because you gave physical things that people could do, which is like running around or like putting music on and having a big dance, like, because some people will need to release that in that way. But you also had some energetic practices there, which was, one of them was, and again, people that can't see this, you physically put your hands around your body and brushed it off as if you had dust on your shoulders. And we know from that's an energetic kind of literally brushing energy off of your body, right?
100%.
Not shaking it, it's brushing it off the same way that you would brush off a seat on the tube, for example, anything like that, the clearing of energy. Because so you've got the kind of physical stuff that you were saying about, and then you've got the emotional stuff like the writing and the crying, if you need to cry, anything like this.
Absolutely.
And also the energetic stuff, so you can come at it from a number of different angles. If one thing doesn't work, try another thing. Is that what you'd suggest?
Yeah, 100%, because we're multifaceted humans, and what works for one isn't going to work for another. And some people might be like, "Oh, I'm not that spiritual," and it's like, great, then go for a run. It's not all about. It's about what moves energy through you as a human and what helps change your state. And if running does that for you, then why would you not do it? For other people, it might be dancing or singing.
Absolutely.
And it's so simple, really.
Yeah. So we have those smaller kind of moments in a day-to-day which make a big difference. Those are like compounding things. Like if you can get a handle on those things, like you're doing pretty good, and that's like an
Mm.
everyday practice. But then we do get those things that are those divine interventions, the things that are really traumatic. And I guess for you it sounds like it was the relationship ending. How did you get through that, or what would you give back to yourself in that moment to get through that? How do you let go of that with as much ease as you can? How much of that is timing as well?
Yeah, I think, how do you mean timing? Sorry.
As in, like, some people feel like you should be over it and within a certain time period, or
Oh yeah, I'm not into what
I'm
other people think.
behind. I'm behind the time. It should have only taken me 2 months. It should have taken me a day. How do you?
Mm.
Is it timing? How do you move on with ease? What's that kind of conversation look like?
Well, I think again, I mean, a lot of this might be hindsight looking back on it, because I think at the time I just kind of intuitively took what I needed. And a lot of that was really going back to self nurture. And um for those that are out there, I have a Venus in Pisces, so I have a real like romantic notion of relationships and rose tinted goggles and all of that. I also have a Taurus moon, so basically I find like if I'm trying to get over stuff, sometimes I need to just put on a really weepy movie and have a good old blub, and just allowing myself to be in that space. And if I then needed to cheer myself up, then I do the opposite and put on something fun and silly and whatever else, on those moments where you're in that hermit period of not wanting to go back out and about.
Mm,
People handle relationship breakups in so many different ways. Some people are like, right, I'm straight back on it the next day. And other people are like, no, I just need to heal. I know I was definitely in that space of, right, this is about me. What is it that brings joy for me? And for me, it was walking out and about, being in nature, getting my nails done, maybe buying, as one did back in the day, not so much now, magazines and, watching things that made me feel happy or inspired. I watched at that time actually a hell of a lot of like grand designs and all those things that were really inspiring
so
my career.
therapeutic. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh, so
that's like,
zen.
yeah, my career was shifting at the same time. So it was really just kind of about, for me particularly, intuitively being kind to myself. And because when you come away from a big relationship, it's not just that you come away from the family aspect of it and the friends that are connected to that,
The
and
whole
you've
lifestyle.
you've created a life together and you've lived together and you've
Mm,
shared furniture and all of that stuff. And it's like, oh gosh, I'm like literally back to basics. And so it's like,
mm,
okay, let's just come back and be where I am, and then just slowly rebuild. And
mm.
that's
That,
kind of what I did.
I mean, it is really like reinventing yourself, isn't it? Because
Mm.
like whoever you once
Rediscovering.
were, yeah, it's like
Mm,
whoever you once were in that relationship, or whether it's in work or partnership, it's like it's time to reinvent, to look at yourself, to discover yourself, to go on that adventure. And it's that self-care, self-love thing, that whole package that comes with it. So it's really important to be aware of who you are, where you are, and what's going on, and taking that moment of pause if you need it. Yeah, definitely.
And I think also taking the learnings from it, working out, or maybe at least spending a little bit of time if you're inclined to do so. For me, I'm a big journaler, so working out maybe what I could have done differently, what could have been different, what I want moving forwards,
Mm.
what are my non-negotiables, what my values are, reevaluating all of those things. Because if you don't know those things, then how if you move forwards and you stumble over someone at a bus stop and you're like, oh, hey, you're cute, and you don't know what your own values are or what you
Yeah.
want in a relationship, then, you then just end up in that situation where it just happens to you and you're not in control of it in a way, as opposed
Yeah.
to going, oh, actually, I just need to check that my values align with your values and we get the important things right,
And you can go on, I hear from so many clients that they end up meeting somebody that was similar to their ex, because they're on
Mm,
repeat, because they've still got the energy of the last relationship. They
yes.
haven't got anything from that, and they keep repeating and repeating and repeating, and then wondering why is this happening to me again? It's actually, no, look at it, what's going on first. Because that,
yeah.
I was tuning in the other day, and very much so, my guides, my team was sort of saying people have to have the interaction actually of a relationship, not to shut themselves away
Yeah.
because they might have been bruised or damaged from a relationship they felt, but to have the interaction with a partner, to actually look at the other side of you. If you think of yourself as a diamond, it's like
Mm,
now looking at the other facet of the other side of that diamond. So you've worked on one part of you within one relationship, you come
mm,
out, you pop out of that one, they just said, you go into another relationship, hopefully you've adjusted from the last one, then there's something new that is looking at another side of you. And they just said that's what relationships are built for, is to have the interconnection with other humans, whether friendships, romantic relationships, to actually address different sides of you. It's about learning. That's why the soul is here. Totally.
Yeah, and I think there is so much growth in a relationship. You learn so much about yourself because there's just mirror reflections and all sorts of things going on,
Yeah,
isn't there? And I
totally.
think that it's not even just romantic relationships, but the people, I
Yeah,
personally believe and notice now that the people you attract into your life are reflecting back where you're
yeah,
at, right?
definitely. Yeah,
So I think that's a really curious way of seeing who pops up in your life at this time, and or any time really, and just being like, oh, okay, this is great, but maybe I need to tweak my energy a little bit here or a little
yeah.
bit there.
Identifying your growth and where, yeah, as you say, tweaking different areas. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's good.
There's something else that you mention, which is a nice thing to kind of bring up, which is there is this kind of misconception that all therapists heal you because there is something wrong with you. People turn to therapy because there is something wrong with you as a person. And there is something that you say, and it says, I'm not here to fix you because you are not broken. And I
Mm.
love that phrase, and it feels like such a heart-led phrase as well. But
Mm.
what do you mean by that? I'm not here to fix you because you're not broken.
Well, because I think there's so much I think there I'm just trying to think how I can word it without it coming
Of
out
course.
sort of disparaging, but there's so we're so bombarded by different modalities, and people, maybe some people play more of a god complex, and like, I come to me for healing and I can heal you and all of this, and it's like
Yeah.
the way I work, and I guess probably the way I've probably intuitively worked, has been very much about, it's about the person that's in front of me, it's not about me.
Mm.
Actually that works in both my work, also works in my interior stuff, weirdly enough, but it's
Mhm.
nothing is about me. And if somebody comes to see me, it's like, I'm not here to heal you, I'm not here to do anything for you, I'm just holding the space and being like a facilitator so that you can work through your stuff. But you're not actually broken, you are just in a period of time, or you're just in flux. There's just stuff you need to, you maybe want to clear out or change or work through. But we're all here, we're all divine beings, all of us, and that goes back to your lovely point earlier about the humanity, and about us being more connected as humanity and saying good morning to people and all of that. We're all divine beings, so why would we think we were broken in any way, shape or form? We are who we are.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
And
broken sounds as if like it's unfixable, that you
Yeah.
damaged goods, which is so much rubbish. If anything, it's like there's that, what's that Japanese thing when they stick
begins with a K.
yeah, begins with a
Helen,
K.
you might know this.
I know exactly, and I can see it, and I can't
Yeah,
think of how
so
to
can
say it.
I. Where you
Yeah,
stick the pottery together again, but you glue
With
it and you
gold.
have gold in
yeah,
it, and actually
yeah.
makes you stronger and more beautiful because of everything you've gone through. I mean, there's something recently I said to somebody that amount of scars that I have on my body from loads of operations, and I was feeling a bit sensitive about how they may see my body. Now, I might be
Mm,
oversharing, but literally, this person actually said, that is part of your journey, it's part of your life, and they kissed every scar, and I was like, oh, through their eyes, this is what
mm,
they're showing me of how they see me. And then I saw myself through their eyes for a moment. I was like, no, those scars are just representing different parts of my journey of my life,
mm,
but it went deeper into my soul level. It was, that kiss might have been on my arm where I had a scar, but actually that part of that kiss, it sort of radiated through me even more, and I was like, oh my god, of how I saw that scar, and now then kissing that scar, I was like, wow, it just penetrated through my soul. So it's,
yeah,
I hate that terminology, broken.
yeah.
Definitely because it's unfixable and that you're sensitive and you're weak and you're damaged and no good. But actually, no, it's not bad at all. It's part of your journey of growth, what you've been through. Those are beautiful marks, beautiful things that happen to us. So totally, yeah, love it.
100%, absolutely. And it's part of the journey, and there has to be some just acceptance as well, and being in that space of being like, okay, things perhaps aren't quite what I'd like them to be, but that journey's happened for a reason. You're
Yeah.
here today because of what's happened to you in the past, and it's not always easy for people to recognize, and that's fair enough. But it doesn't make you a broken human. You are still a divine spirit.
They just said it's your whole. There's not fragments of you missing. You are whole.
Yeah.
Fragments come together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
you're
think
right.
that's, you know, people, you know, when we go through big traumas or big life issues and whatever, you know, I think energetically we can perhaps become a little bit fragmented, and it's like returning back to ourselves, and that's where it starts from, the healing journey, for want of a better word. But you know, if we're wanting to make changes, it's bringing those parts of us back and returning to wholeness, essentially.
Love that.
It's
Love
so beautiful, and it's nice to kind of end on that note. It's this kind of idea that every human being is divine and everyone is going through this expansion, and this is what Odyssey is all about, providing those tools, resources, and practitioners that when you reach the kind of pinnacle of the expansion that you reached, you just need new tools. You're not
Yeah.
broken, it's just you need
Yeah.
new tools to help you expand even further, which is the
Yeah.
whole purpose of this. The whole
Yeah.
purpose of this platform and these conversations, getting to know our practitioners, is to help you find the right practitioners, resources, and tools so you can keep on expanding. It doesn't
Yeah.
stop at where you are at now. When you reach that kind of resistance point, it's then you need extra tools to then go into the next stage of
Yeah.
expansion.
100%.
And when you feel like you're contracting, that's not the natural state of a human being. That's when
No.
you feel really stuck. That's when you seek extra help, when you seek guidance, when you seek extra tools and resources to continue that expansion.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a lovely conversation with you today, and Helen's on our platform. She helps people embark on the journey of self-discovery and to remind people of their divinity through that heart-led practice that she offers.
Beautiful. Lovely to see you both.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to see you too. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you.